Good. Everyone joining us virtually on YouTube and Facebook, a big hearty welcome to you as well. Glad you can join us wherever you are and enjoy our service wherever you are. We are really coming always from the heart space whenever we're coming here together on a Sunday morning. And we are here to reveal to ourselves the heart treasure. You know, it makes me think of a title of a book by one of the great Tibetan masters, Longchenpa, The Heart Treasure of the Vast Expanse. And that's what we're revealing to ourselves, that we are more than we could ever imagine within this little confine of a singular life and a little biological body experience, that we are here to actually unveil our magnitude, as he says in A Course in Miracles, and bring that to bear on all of the minutiae of our bodily experience, so that we literally begin to show up as the co-creators of our life, that we're no longer victims of circumstance and haphazard occurrences, but that we actually realize that we're the dreamers of the cosmos and that we change our dream and we change the world from the inside. So that's how we unpack or unveil these treasures, that we come back to the source consciousness deep within our own heart. And that is the journey of 1,000 miles that Lao Tzu talks about in a Tao Te Ching. And in this way, or Tao, of coming back to ourself, it really is an undoing. You know, Lao Tzu was famous in his statement, doing, not doing. And so when we talk about unveiling these treasures and coming to this moment as the great divine higher self and having that self show up in our everyday life, it seems like quite the task. But in the wisdom teachings of the world, it's actually the recognition of what's always already the case. You don't have to make this up. You don't have to fabricate it. You actually have to relax into it. And so we have to become more proficient at chilling out. When we're in our life, we become very high-strung, and we become very anxious and anxiety-prone, and we're always throwing our attention outside of ourselves. So when we come here into such a space, it's really a time to recollect, to literally remember, to bring back all of these discordant and disassociated parts of ourselves into an inner harmony. And so this is all about you now, coming back to your own heart. So even though I'm up here seemingly separate from you talking, the words that I'm speaking are different than what you would find out there in the workaday world. These words and the intention behind them is literally designed for this turning around and coming home to your heart. The true meaning of repentance. To turn around from facing out into the world and staying unaware of your inner treasures, to turn around and rediscover, remember who you are. And that's what we're going to talk about today, this remembering of the self, that is the self in all beings. This is the great command, really, that I am the Lord your God. Right? I took you out of bondage. Serve only me. But if you really look at the way that the inner teachings of even the Old Testament commandments are structured, the name for God is your own being, the only being that there is. Serve that being. Recognize that you're integrated or a part of that one being. And that one being shares itself entirely with all of its creation, always. So this is why when we turn around from facing out into the world and trying to be the little self that is on this mission to find happiness out in the world and in our immediate relationships, we are completely ignoring true being, and we're focusing on beings. And so when we remember God, we're literally remembering ourselves. And we're going to, like I said today, not only remember God, remember ourselves, but in order to do this, in order for it to be practical and real, we have to actually see that we are the self in all beings. So we're going to be looking today at some of the Sufi teachings, some of the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, and A Course in Miracles. And this veil, hopefully, will come off of your eyes so that you can behold, and remember, I'm only speaking to myself, so I am in no way different from what needs to be heard by me than by you. How by serving others, by cherishing others, by seeing the divine in others, we find it for ourselves. And the Buddhists had this beautiful image of what that meant pictorially. And you may have heard this before. So the vision of heaven for the Buddhist is well, let's start with hell, right? It's always a more dramatic place to start. The vision of hell is a banquet table. And on each side of the banquet table are seated people with 3-foot-long chopsticks. And each of them are trying to feed themselves with these 3-foot-long chopsticks. And they can't get the food in their mouth because it keeps falling out. It's just too cumbersome to handle. The vision of heaven is the exact same scene. Banquet table, people, 3-foot-long chopsticks. But in heaven, everyone is feeding each other. And so everyone is satisfied. But no one is focused on themselves. They're actually focused on cherishing others. And in cherishing others, they find satisfaction and fulfillment. That's why you've heard me say before, quoting the Dalai Lama, that those enlightening beings who know how reality really works, how reality really is, are the most selfish beings, because they realize in order for them to have limitless happiness, they must give themselves entirely to cherishing others. And as we're going to see today, especially in the Lojong teachings of Tibetan mind training, we suffer because we are so addicted to self-cherishing that all of our problems, all of our struggles, all of our anxiety, all of our pain, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, according to these teachings that are based on deep insight, all of the problems that we encounter are caused by self-cherishing, when we're totally preoccupied for what's in it for me. What about me? Why not me? How come this happened to me? And it's this me that the Buddhist masters say is the biggest disease of your mind, this addiction to me. And see, this is what happens. That me, if we only listen to it as the end-all and be-all of what's important, and we cherish that alone, we end up at that banquet table, and we're still trying to feed ourselves. What's in it for me? How do I get mine? What must I do to get ahead and succeed? Well, if I have to step on people, if I have to do anything, whatever it takes to get my goal achieved, I will do that. And what we're not realizing is that is causing hell for ourselves. So we're going to see how all of that can be undone and how beautiful life can show up when we really start to see the golden nuggets in all people, even the ones that we think of as the least or even despise. So let's just get into the space by setting the tone. Hopefully everyone's phone is silenced. So the only tone we'll hear from now on is the bell. Little phone raspberry right there. Finding your breath. We just take a moment to acknowledge the blessings that we have in this moment, to listen to wisdom teachings in a place of peace where we have all of our faculties to comprehend and understand the teaching. And we have somewhat of a life of leisure, enough to apply the teachings so that we can truly turn hell to heaven, not only for ourselves, but for all beings, that all may be happy and free. And so it is. So one of the ways that this teaching will show up, this teaching of getting clear on the impact of self-cherishing, if you're ready for it, oftentimes unconscious to yourself, you'll attract people who are truly friends. And a true friend in this regard is somebody who will point out your faults. So when we are in our state of self-addiction and preoccupation with our ego needs, when somebody points out our faults, our first gut instinct is to defend and project and get angry and make them wrong for pointing out our shortcomings. But if we are on this path of true compassion and true awakening, we will realize that, as Shantideva says in his great book, The Way of the Bodhisattva, when we cherish ourself, that is suffering. When we cherish others, that is true freedom and happiness. So when anyone ever points out your shortcomings, that's actually a gift. Because by decreasing your self-cherishing and opening up to that criticism, you can actually come out of the self-addiction. Because one of the ways that self-cherishing shows up, they describe it in these sacred teachings in Tibet, is it's like a jaundice eye. When you have jaundice, you just see yellow. It's just the way the world looks. When you have self-cherishing, it's the same type of seamless perception. You're seeing everything, every event, every situation, every relationship in terms of me. It's totally me-centric or egocentric. And that is the ultimate, really the only block to spiritual awakening. Because if we're only fixated on the little self, we are making the little self the center of reality. And by choice, we are ignoring the higher self. And we are actually ignoring all of the opportunities that the higher self is bringing to us to jar us out of this trance of self-addiction. One of the ways that it will show up is a true friend, or a true friend disguised as an enemy. You know, one of the endearing traits of Byron Katie, I don't know if you know who Byron Katie is, an enlightened individual, so to speak. And one of the things that she loves are the opportunities when people point out what bugs them about her or her own personal flaws as others see them. And she leans in and says, "Tell me more, because I really want to know how I could get out of the way what's in the way of me being pure and truly loving." So this teaching is going to do two things. One is it's going to reveal to you your unconscious or heretofore maybe largely ignored self-addiction, where it's all centered on you. Even your enlightenment journey it's all about me. It's all about me. And secondly, it's going to release you from being so entranced by that so that you can actually realize what they call in the Tibetan teachings the mind of joy. that you actually are already connected to this field of infinite blessing, but you are ignoring it because of this self-talk and this self-fixation on the little me. So two things happen. A real uncomfortable experience of getting out of the self-addiction and seeing how it's actually been at the root of all of your problems. For the Buddhists, they say that it exceeds just this life. We've been wandering, they say it this way, we've been wandering in endless time, driven by the winds of karma that have been originated by our self-cherishing. The only way to break free of that is to realize that, to look at it clearly, not with depression, but with a thanksgiving, a gratitude, so that now you can actually begin to cultivate a mind of joy and truly see how things are really operating in the world to free you from the pain of self-addiction. In A Course in Miracles, he says that the atonement principle, which is bringing everything back into love, the atonement principle is operating throughout all the dimensions of time. That means even the time that is experienced within your atoms and molecules and cells, every scale of time. The atonement principle is weaving its way through to bring everything back, to recapitulate, to remember, to restore this lost love where everyone recognizes their oneness with all living things. So that means all the events in time, if truly seen, are operating to release you into your bliss and love, right here and now. But when we're addicted to the self-talk and our conditioned way of thinking, we don't see it that way. We see problems, we see illness, we see trouble, we see enemies. And that becomes our way of staying addicted to fear, right? Because self-cherishing really is the opposite of love. It's fear. I'm not going to have enough. They're going to take what I have from me. Something bad is bound to happen because I'm little and the world is big and it's hostile. It's not safe. I'm very vulnerable as this little me. So I have to be defensive. I have to be sometimes ornery. I have to be outraged at the injustice that I see. All of that is just in keeping the story of your little self alive when we realize that we can actually give that up and see it differently. That is the moment when we turn around and head home and hopefully stay the course. So I'm going to bring in some enlightening words here. First from Hafiz. Hafiz has a poem entitled, "Your Mother and My Mother." Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. For your mother and my mother were friends. I know the innkeeper in this part of the universe. Get some rest tonight. Come to my verse again tomorrow. We'll go speak to the friend together. I should not make any promises right now, but I know if you pray somewhere in this world, something good will happen. God wants to see more love and playfulness in your eyes, for that is your greatest witness to Him. Your soul and my soul once sat together in the beloved's womb, playing footsie. Your heart and my heart are very old friends. So we're seeing how Hafiz, through the beauty of prose and imagery, can peel back these layers of the blockage of self-cherishing by first and foremost showing you that fear is the cheapest room in the house of existence. It's never going to give you the satisfaction that you're seeking. To stay as the isolated self is basically staying in that fear and not knowing your abundance. So this can only be gain, despite the inner chatter maybe of a self that's trying to survive this conversation, that's afraid to relax, that's so addicted even to anxiety, addicted to being sick, addicted to drama, addicted to blaming others, just so that the tightness can stay. It's the cheapest room in the house. And as Hafiz says, I would like to see you living in better conditions. That is the wish of all beings who truly know themselves. Like, why are we hurting and torturing ourselves? It's just needless, unnecessary. And then he says something beautiful. I should not make any promises right now, but I know if you pray somewhere in this world, something good will happen. In other words, you have the power to bring light into the world, and we're not using it because we think we're another self that doesn't have power and that isn't effective in spiritual dimensions, and it's only physical and material and whatever is before us, that's all that exists. But what we're going to realize as we give up the self-cherishing and relax into the great expanse of the treasury of the heart is that we affect everyone with every choice, every thought, every emotion, somewhere in the world. And when we become more amplified in letting the love operate in us and becoming released from the limitations of the false self, we literally become channels of blessing in the world. And remember, it's like the chopsticks. You will only be given what you give. That's just the feedback system of this part of the universe. So as we allow ourselves to have compassion for others, especially, and this has been a big one for me and continues to be a good practice for me, especially the ones who appear corrupt and, really detrimental to other people and harmful to life and conniving and scheming and lying. Those types of people have always been the ones that really make me want to kill, hate, with a burning desire for them to be eradicated. If they were gone, everything would be good. And that's showing me my own clinging to attack. As we're going to see in A Course in Miracles, he says, all attack is self-attack. Because remember, there's only love in reality, and we're all aspects of it. And we are having an identity crisis when we think that there is somebody else undeserving of love. And what's really important to get here, in light of praying for others and wanting others to be released, wanting others to be truly free, even the least deserving, to whomever you do this to, even the least of these, you do it to me, as it says in the gospel. That behind the facade of a distorted, deluded, self-destructive mind, there is the glowing jewel of the Christ light, waiting to be discovered by the one who is no longer fixated on themselves, but actually is blessing the world and seeing all beings already as they truly are, aspects of God. And that brings you the freedom, because, as we've said here many times before, we are having a dream, each one of us. And whoever we hate, we're only using our hate, what is already within our heart, to hate them. We can only see ourselves in them. That's an important spiritual law to always remember whenever you want to attack somebody. You can only use your own hatred to attack. And it's this hatred, not the form that you think is doing the wrong, the person. It's the hatred that is actually hurting you. And by having that person show up that way allows your hatred to surface so that you can see it and ask for the release of it, right? God wants to see more love and playfulness in your eyes. That's your witness to him. How can you be loving and playful when you think you're living in a world that is so lost and destitute and filled with the horror and corruption that we think is really there? It's our self-cherishing that is making such a world. And by releasing ourselves, by letting go of our beliefs that are so hateful, we release the world. And we remember God. And the way to do this, too, is to see even your most cherished enemy in the light of Hafiz's final stanza. You could even say this right now to somebody that you particularly dislike or even hate. In your mind, see them before you and say this: your heart and my heart are very old friends. So I shared recently, there was a picture, this is one of the things that kind of jarred me out of some of my special hate that I so relished in. I saw a picture from years back, and the Dalai Lama was at the Congress, and he's holding the hand of somebody who I particularly see as just a horrible human being. And he's holding the hand of this individual and bowing and smiling. And my first thought was, how can you do that? Don't you see? Don't you know? And the real answer to that is yes, he does. He does. His heart and their heart are very old friends. And what we choose to focus on, we make real for ourselves, and we get the impact of that. We see what we value, and a whole world comes with it. So just think, like, the remedy to your hatred, the remedy to your problem is here. It's right here. Stop cherishing yourself and your views and your beliefs about right and wrong and your attitudes, and realize that there's a bigger plan that can work through you and show you your real self. And by showing you who you are, you'll realize everyone's heart and your heart are very old friends. You come from the same womb. That's how this world will shift. No other way. Hafiz again. How do I listen? How do I listen to others? As if everyone were my master speaking to me, his cherished last words. I hope I'm getting chills. I hope you're getting the impact of this, that you can show up completely transformed in your relationship dynamics by not making it all about you. Even your best interest, that some of your relationships, like you want to rescue, you want to help, and they're just being so self-destructive. Well, get out of your own way. Give up your agenda. Stop trying to force it on somebody else, even if you have the best intentions. And listen to them as if they were your master, your most cherished self. And watch your relationships transform. Not that you're going to put on a display like, here I am, listening to you as, this enlightened person now, and you're this master, as I heard Hafiz say this morning. No, it's natural. It's just part of the way you show up in the relationship, but there's that subtle inner shift now. You're not putting on a show. You're honestly, authentically there, getting in their world, loving them, seeing that they are already safe in their own divinity. And your heart and their heart join. No agenda, no forcing an outcome. Just being with them in love and total openness and total acceptance. And really listen from this place of cherishing them, not yourself, pretending to cherish them. It's a real subtle shift, and you'll know it by its fruits. If you're really cherishing others, they'll feel that. Even if they can't fully accept it and they're not going to change on a dime and all of your wishes for them will be fulfilled, they'll feel it. It will have its impact. And on that note, it felt love. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to this world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. That's what we're saying. Everybody's this closed rosebud. I just got Citizen Kane in a whole new way. We're just this closed rosebud, and we need the touch of light to open. And the people that are in our life, many of them, as he says in A Course in Miracles, are there because it's only from us that they can actually receive the light. They're tuned to our frequency. They're waiting for us. And when they feel that cherishing from us touching their being, they will open. You could watch it miraculously in all of your relationships. Take yourself out of it and watch how your relationships transform. And then lastly here from Hafiz. This is a Arabic word. In Sufism, it's really the main spiritual practice. It's called zikr, spelled Z-I-K-R, pronounced with a kind of a strong T-H. And it's meaning remembrance. Remembrance lowers the cup into his luminous sky well. The mind often becomes plagued and can deny the all-pervading beauty of God. When the great work of remembrance is forgotten, I have chained my every dancing atom into a divine seat in the beloved's tavern. What I have learned, I am so eager to share. Every ill will confess it was just a lie. When the golden efforts of your love lift the precious wine to your mouth, remembrance of our dear friend lowers the soul's chalice into God. Look, my sweet efforts and his sublime grace have now turned creation into a single finger on my hand. And from the vast reservoirs in my heart and palms, Hafiz offers God. By willing to remember God, you forget your little self. That's why Jesus says perfectly in light of this in A Course in Miracles, an idol or the thought God holds of you is your reality. The little self is an idol. Right? So the thought God holds of you is how you show up as a blessing in your life. When you cling to the little self, you cannot remember you're blessed. And that you have everything to give. Just take a moment and allow that light of grace that's here for you to touch your being. Allow that inner rose of the heart to open. And see if you can greet this moment in that openness, like a little child before it learns to focus so intently upon its little ideas of self and other. Just open, clear, and willing to receive. And as this light will surely touch you if you're truly open, allow it to penetrate the layers of your heart. Don't let it stop with just that original feeling of, ooh, that's nice. Let it continue to go deeper. And just keep relaxing and opening. And as Hafiz says, every ill will declare itself a lie as you continue to open your heart and let this light go into all of these layers where you've sequestered yourself off in that fearful state of aloneness and separation. All of that will be shined away. And you'll realize happiness is your natural state. When I just looked out at everyone, the first thought was peace. There is peace here. And the word peace is exactly where we need to go next, because in its deeper connotations, you cannot have peace if you don't recognize the wholeness of life. In the languages of the Bible, peace actually has the root word for wholeness. In other words, you have to see the totality of creation in God in order to have true, authentic peace. No one is excluded, even if they're trying to exclude themselves. You refuse to accept their low opinion of God's creation that they are. That's why he says beautifully in A Course in Miracles, you deny the denial of God in them. You hold it for them until they can see it for themselves. Even the least deserving of these, my brethren. And remember, it's your dream. These are all parts of yourself because you're the wholeness, denying itself and disassociating parts of itself as if it were black over there in them, when it's my own shadow that I have not forgiven myself for. So in order to return to wholeness, I have to give it to everyone I see, everyone I think about. Even if they've passed over from this world, I still must give it. So we'll briefly stop off in this teaching. This is coming from the Buddhist way of loving kindness, the 8 steps to happiness. This is the teaching that we were speaking of earlier, the mind training, that really focuses on melting away the bondage of self-cherishing. So there's the question raised here, what is self-cherishing? And this is Geshe Kelsang Gyatso saying this. Of all the innumerable conceptual thoughts that arise from the ocean of our root mind, the most harmful is self-cherishing. And the most beneficial is the mind of cherishing others. What exactly is self-cherishing? Self-cherishing is defined as a mind that considers oneself to be supremely important and precious, and that develops from the appearance of true existence of the little self. The delusion of self-cherishing is functioning in our mind almost all the time, and is at the very core of our suffering in creation. It is our self-cherishing that makes us feel that our happiness and freedom are more important than anyone else's, that our wishes and feelings matter more, and that our life and experiences are more interesting. So remember, this is occurring on an individual, personal level. You're self-cherishing. You're more important than everybody else, really, when it comes down to it. And then everybody that you identify with, you share that same self-cherishing principle in a larger membership society or a national identity. My government, my religion, right or wrong. That's who I am. My family, right? My community. We get into these little enclaves of self-cherishing, and others are left out. And we think under this delusion. Remember, delusion is a way of thinking that is not in alignment with reality. Reality is love and peace. So under this delusion, you're avoiding or resisting or denying reality and peace for yourself. And that means then, if I do these things that work for my nation, my religion, my group, or just me, I'll be happy. That's the way to get happy. And it's actually the way to create more suffering for yourself, your group, your nation, your religion. So that's why he says, due to the imprints of self-grasping, whatever appears to our mind, including the sense of I, appears to be inherently existing. Grasping at our own self as inherently existent, we grasp at the self of others as inherently existent, and then conceive self in others to be inherently different. I'm me, this solid body, separate from you, and because I know what it feels like to be this little separate self, I've made a little separate self for you. We're all doing this for one another. It's really a terrible gift that we keep giving to each other in our deluded state. See, we can only give what we are. And if we're identified as the little self, we're giving suffering to other people. That's why when we get out of our own way, we actually can free up everybody else. We can listen to them as if it were our master speaking to us. So when we see ourselves as separate, others are inherently different. Once you make somebody different from you, you could do whatever you need to do to get ahead, or to come up with the excuse to attack or hate. Once you make that disconnect, that they are not you, they're inherently different from you, it's done. All of the unvirtuous behavior and ideas will come in. The afflictive emotions will come in. We conjure it. Just as easily we can dispel it. And then finally here, this is coming from these teachings of Shantideva and his great work, The Way of the Bodhisattva, the way of the enlightening or compassionate being. The childish work only for themselves, whereas the Buddhas, the enlightened ones, work only for others. Just look at the difference between them. Back to those chopsticks. I have worked for my own purpose since beginningless time, trying to find happiness for myself and avoid suffering. But what do I have to show for all my efforts? I'm still suffering. I still have an uncontrolled mind. I still experience disappointment after disappointment. I am in samsara, in this endless wandering, this seeking but never finding. This is the fault of my self-cherishing. Do you see the simplicity of this? All of the complexity is done. There's no one out there, there's no situation, no historical event, no parent or teacher or enemy that is to blame for any of your suffering, ever. Only the self-cherishing has brought you into those situations. This is, a leap for some of us to really grasp. But we're generating our dream from the inside out. We call forth the characters in our dream based on our self-cherishing. Please mistreat me. I have such a low opinion of myself. You must abuse me. Please abandon me, because I've abandoned myself. Please recognize your value and your endless gift to me and my gratitude to you. It can be completely transmuted. The antidote is simply to give up the self-cherishing. Self-cherishing, Shantideva goes on to say, is my worst enemy. and a terrible poison that harms both myself and others. Cherishing others, however, is the basis of all happiness and goodness. Those who are now Buddhas saw the futility of working for their own purpose and decided to work for others instead. As a result, they became pure beings free from all the problems of samsara. I must reverse my ordinary childish attitude. Say that to yourself if you want to take this on. I must reverse my ordinary childish attitude. From now on, I will stop cherishing myself and only cherish others. And there's a practice that goes along with this teaching called the giving and taking, or danglen. And you can try this on and to whatever degree that you want to experience this. Basically, it's where you time your breath to the practice. So for instance, whomever you think about, let's say you have an enemy or a loved one who's struggling, or just a person passing in the street, hold them in your mind with this loving kindness. Hold yourself in mind with this loving kindness. Know that nothing can harm or threaten you because of your true nature. Then you inhale and envision all of their burdens and problems, like black smoke or dark water, coming into the center of your heart. And as that flow of dark energy and pain and struggle and sadness and depression comes into your heart, it destroys your grasping and cherishing your little ego. And then you exhale out a pure light of compassion and love and kindness that will uplift them. So whenever you're getting triggered or agitated, you can do this. I've been really taking this on the past few days, and everyone that walks by, if a lady this morning was crossing at the red light in front of me and she looked like she was carrying the weight of the world, right there, I breathed in and I blessed. Not because I'm special, but quite the opposite. She is. And by seeing her as that, I gift it to myself, but I'm not looking for it in me. I'll never find that in me. That's why, if you've studied A Course in Miracles for any length of time, he's adamant about this. You cannot find enlightenment alone. The only way you can do it is to see it in your brother or sister. This goes right back to the epistle of 1 John. You say you love God, and you hate your brother. Hypocrite. How can you love God and hate his creation? This is the fork in the road. And the only reason why we're hating our brother, it's not because of what our brother is or is not. It's because we cherish ourself, and our self-system, our self-values, don't like our brother. Good? Yeah, I hope so. So, finishing here with A Course in Miracles. Back to this idea of remembering. To remember is merely to restore your mind to what is already there, right? Your enlightened nature, your joyous mind. You did not make what you remember. You merely accept again what has been rejected. The ability to accept truth in this world is the perceptual counterpart of creating in the kingdom. God will do his part if you will do yours. And his return in exchange for yours is the exchange of freedom for bondage. Nothing is beyond his will for you, but signify your will to remember him, and behold, everything is there but for your asking. And this is truth. Then he says something very beautiful about who we really are. You are a ray of light in God's mind, protected and sustained by his being. You are one with him because you are part of him. Whenever you attack, you are denying yourself. You are specifically teaching yourself that you are not what you are. Your denial of reality precludes acceptance of God's gift because you have accepted something else in its place, an idol or the thought God holds of you are your reality, bondage or freedom, joy or pain. If you understand that the misuse of defenses always constitutes an attack on truth, and truth is God, you will realize why this is always fearful. So basically, you who say you love God and hate your brother, hypocrite, because what you're doing is you're actually attacking God. Because your brother is a part of God, even if he doesn't know it. Even if he's totally bought into being the idol and acting self-destructively. It doesn't change his reality in truth. And if you attack your brother, you have to deny your connection to God, and therefore are attacking God. And that's why he says you will then be fearful as a result of this attack. Whenever you think less of someone, whenever you belittle someone, you're hurting your mind because you're denying his blessing on your life. Those who are fully blessed aren't miserable. But when we cherish our little self, we are miserable. We have to be, because it's the worst room in the house. And then finally here. So see in your brother or sister God's creation. For in him, his Father waits for your acknowledgement that he created you as part of him. Without you, there would be a lack in God, a heaven incomplete. There could be no universe and no reality without you. For what God wills is whole and part of him, because his will is one. Nothing alive that is not part of him. Nothing alive that is not part of him, and nothing but is alive in him. Your brother's holiness shows you that God is one with him and you, and what he has is yours, because you're not separate from him or from your Father. My heart and your heart are very old friends. Forget not that the healing of you and your brothers is all the world is for. That is the only purpose the Holy Spirit sees in it, and thus the only one it has. Until you see the healing of all living beings as all you wish to be accomplished by the world, by time and all appearances, you will not know God or yourself. For you will use the world for what is not its purpose, and will not escape its laws of violence and death. You'll keep trying to feed yourself with those 3-foot-long chopsticks and think you're cursed The fates are against you. Why me? Why must I suffer so? A tragic figure, not realizing it's all because we're misusing the world, thinking it's about me. So look on your brother and behold in him the whole reversal of the laws that seem to rule this world. See in his freedom yours, for such it is. Let not his self-cherishing obscure the truth in him. For not one law of death you bind him to will you escape. Yet will his perfect sinlessness release you both. For holiness is quite impartial, with one judgment made for all it looks upon, and that is made not of itself, but through the voice that speaks for God in everything that lives and shares his being. So listen for that voice. Listen to your brothers and sisters as the voice of the Master speaking to you. And when you forget, you'll know you've forgotten because of the way you feel. And if you're upset or irritated or angry or distracted, there's your self-cherishing. And then you can just as easily choose again and bring it back to this state of mind where you want to cherish others. Well, we now ask for you to cherish the church and this service. The blue bag is going to go around. And if you are still on Facebook, I know I'm a couple of minutes past. If you didn't blip off on Facebook or YouTube, you can connect to the link below and donate to the 8 a.m. service. And we are grateful and appreciative for your generosity. You got anything for me? Any thoughts? Feedback? Rotten cabbage? Grateful for the offering as well as those who offered it. May this be charged with the intention to bring all beings to true happiness and true freedom. So it is. Amen. Okay, my friends, you can rise. And settle within that spot within the heart where you can feel that light within that inner bud of the rose touching you and allowing that heart to open and be open in every place and every event and every relationship that you are off to now. May you truly be the light and fragrance of love in the world, and know that the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the watches over us wherever we are. God is. Amen. Namaste, my friends. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you again. Course in Miracles tomorrow night.